Hello friends and enemies, welcome back to Happy For Now. It's me Isabel here with your Romancelandia Monthly. I had this planned. I was going to do a video where I talked about the trends in Romancelandia, and lo and behold, this month we hit quite a few of the trend items. So we're still going to talk about Romancelandia trends, and we're still going to cover some of the things that happened in the last month or so. I did delay it this month because I do not know that I will have time to get one up in August, so I wanted to have one mid-July for you. This trend, I've been doing Romancelandia's since I think 3 years this December. This has been a long ongoing thing. I'm constantly calling out romance and our issues in the romance community and covering news and the happenings, right? Yeah. So it's no surprise that I have noticed trends, and I feel like almost every month we hit one of these, if not two, and some of them I don't even cover because they just are on a constant repeat. I, like Jess Owens, am convinced that there's someone out there who's like, we haven't talked about that in a while. Let me tweet it up. Let me put that out in the ether. So let's dive into the trends and talk about them and what they are, how we can avoid them, some of the pitfalls of them, etc. So first things first, my favorite trend that I feel like is on a constant repeat on TikTok and it cracks me up because y'all just calm down. And it is the dark romance readers, what the fuck is wrong with you trend. I swear, I see a TikTok once a week or that, and like I'm not only on BookTok, I'm on a lot of other TikTok like spheres. But I will just randomly get one where it's like, why are you shaming dark romance? And I'll never see the original, but somebody will throw shade at dark romance readers. Dark romance is not for everyone, and that's okay. We're all allowed to have different tastes. I would say most dark romance readers know, obviously, like we can separate fiction from reality. We also know that like these aren't things that would be okay in real life. I do think there's one pet peeve I have with dark romance readers, and a lot of us have this, and it's the lack of giving good content warnings, because sometimes things in a dark romance book that I don't expect do trigger me. And yes, I know it's dark, and I do expect a lot of the usual sexual assault, rape, or things like that, but a little content warning can go a long way with some of these books and making me enjoy them more personally. So that's just me. But I feel like this trend comes around regularly. I'm just gonna say this, you shouldn't shame people for what they read. It's not your business. We are allowed to read dark books, we're allowed to read taboo books. These books are not for children. Also, they're not for people under the age of 18. And even then, they're maybe not even for people under the age of 21 or 25. You know, you need to be able to think critically when you read these books sometimes and examine why it's hot, perhaps, or why it makes you uncomfortable. You know, some taboo books are not in the romance genre, and they're designed to make you uncomfortable. I have read some of those books, and it is very interesting to read books that make you uncomfortable sometimes. But that's okay. Like, it's fiction. We are allowed to explore these things through fiction. As long as you're not going out and doing these things in real life, for the most part, we're good. Kinks, that's a different story. I often feel like, you know, people just think that, oh, it's dark romance and like we're romanticizing it in a way we're not always. This can be an issue also. We shouldn't be making like a topic we're gonna bring up later, Nazis, a romance interest. That's not okay to romanticize. But I feel like serial killers, stalkers, things like that, like whatever. We can explore these fantasies. Many women have rape fantasies. We shouldn't be shaming them for it. Many of us use the sexual assaults and other things that happen to the characters in dark romances as a form of healing, and seeing yourself reflected on the page and worthy of love. So like, again, there's a lot here to unpack, and like, it's just always interesting how up in arms people get about dark romances randomly, when I just kind of turn the other way. The only time I'm judging anyone on reading some of these books is when it is underage characters, specifically certain books that have been in the dark romance taboo category that literally feature like underage twins and things like that, is when I'm gonna be a little more like, why are you reading this? It's a little weird. Why is the author writing this? Why aren't we aging them up? Being a romantic thing and like a love interest, that's when I start to have questions. But any other time, as long as it's 18 plus and consenting adults, could care less. Well, I mean, we can have our kind of non-consent in dark romance too, but I'm sure y'all get what I'm saying. Otherwise, no problems here. So I just think people need to like take a breath sometimes before they react to dark romance, and like just recognize, like all books, not every book is for you, and that's okay. We don't all have to like the same thing. Next is plagiarism. I swear, I think it's like every other month we have a plagiarism story. It feels like this month featured Frost K plagiarizing S.M. McErchin's YA books. I will link to her tweet below. I'll put up some comparisons here. She literally took specific, like, same sentences from this book, vanished off social media once called out. This is like a YA book called Sunset Rising, and the book by Frost K is The Chosen. People called it out when they got their arcs. That's bad. Like, that's really bad. But I feel like we continue to regularly have plagiarism things. We had someone in Brazil who like went and took a bunch of items from Courtney Milan, Tessa Dare, all these big authors. And someone built a robot to go through her books and pull, like, you could send her your book and she would find if lines from your book were pulled to put in this woman's books. That was a whole scandal. Like, we just continue to have plagiarism issues, and I know this isn't like just a romance thing. It's just very interesting how often things are plagiarized, and I didn't realize it, I feel like, until I started covering it in Romancelandia Monthly. Maybe y'all realized, I don't know. I feel like I learn more and more about this all the time because I just keep seeing it more and more than I ever expected in my life. Next we have cover discourse. Oh my gosh, y'all, this is one of the tweets I feel like is planned out. Like somebody is scheduling these because I swear if we don't have one of these a week almost, or at least monthly, and I don't cover them half the time because they're very annoying. It's either someone who is a younger romance reader talking about how they don't want to see abs on covers and they think it's embarrassing. Someone else being just like, I don't like X style, and people take it defensively and like it's not, we're all allowed to have preferences. I have a mix. I have illustrated, I have that, I have special editions, I have different covers. It just depends. Some of the cover models I don't find attractive and I don't want the book because of that. Like, plain and simple. I have a Twisted series in special editions because I just really prefer those covers. Yes, they're discreet, but I don't think it matters. Like, it's not just because it's discreet that I like it. I mean, we have half naked men. It's not a big deal, but like, it is such an interesting thing. I think the bigger conversation we should be having about covers is how deceptive some of the cartoon covers can be and misleading, because like, I know I've seen some stuff about recent releases with cartoon covers that deal with heavy themes of grief, cancer, alcoholism in one, just like multiple books, and they just have these cute covers and they're called rom-coms. And I think that honestly is like a valid discussion and a criticism we need to be having and critiquing the community, because publishers need to get it together and give better content warnings on those books. Because like, you can't give me this cute cartoon cover. I think of The Heart Principle by Helen Wong. Like, I liked that book and I understand why people didn't, but I had gotten content warnings from a bunch of people before I read it, which made me able to enjoy the book because I knew what to expect going in. But yeah, I think that's a valid discourse obviously to have, but I just think it's really funny when people get so upset about personal preferences. You know, a lot of us old school romance readers have been reading romance for a long time, obviously love our app covers, we love our hot covers. We loved the language that these kinds of covers spoke to us, because it used to be, right, your erotica covers had an object on the front or flowers. Now sometimes like Mafia and erotica will have more erotic romances, and then like your standard steamy contemporary would have abs on the cover, and then if it was less explicit of a book, usually it was like the couple embracing. So like, there was a language in the covers being communicated to you as a reader, generally speaking. And I think with the cartoon covers, we're losing that language, which is annoying. It's not fun. I don't disagree. Like, it is kind of annoying sometimes to be like, I don't know what's gonna be inside this cartoon cover. So that's why, like, when I read them, I'm very explicit about what's inside, because again, you might think it's a cute cover and you've got like themes of grief throughout this book, and you know, it's a good time. But yeah, the cover conversation is nonstop. The other fun thing we have is, I feel like we just like, this is like occasional, this is not constant, but badly behaved romance shops. This is interesting. Or Bookish Shops is definitely a cycle. Right now, the Bookish box is getting roasted online because they are sending out misprinted files, well, misprinted books, because they messed up their files, badly printed books, off-center foiling, all kinds of stuff. Like, there's like no quality control. Also, things are months late. So I just want to give a quick buyer beware. Shop from Bookish box unless you're prepared to have your things wrong, misprinted, or show up months late, because that apparently is the theme currently with them. Yeah, we do get a little bit of a theme of badly behaved shops. This is like the rarer item on this list, But I did want to touch on the Bookish box. There is a ton on TikTok and other places about just how badly Laura Thalassis series print was. Like, they look terrible. They just launched a dark romance thing with, they're calling it dark romance, but they launched with Elle Kennedy's The Deal series, which has its own issues. Like, I liked those books when I read them, don't get me wrong, but like, I've seen things about current issues with them and they're not wrong either. So yeah, I would just buyer beware. Buyer beware there. So next, this one is one that I don't cover every single time because I get very burned out from some of the random comments I get about this whenever I talk about this subject. That's Nazi romances. We need to stop buying them and reading them as a community. We also need to stop and listen to criticisms about these romances coming from groups that are harmed by them, because to make a Nazi romance your book club pick in the month of June in Pride Month is a choice. And the people who run this book club, I expect better from. I'm not gonna deny it, I expect better from them. This is the Rake Appreciation Society's book club pick formerly for June. They did change it after getting enough critique about it online, but I just think it's not hard to run a book club and put a little thought into the books you're picking. I understand one of the members one of the organizers liked this book a lot, and I know other people that liked this book. I'm not going to share you this book directly because I don't want to encourage traffic to it, but you still have to stop and listen to more than to the voices in the community that are harmed by Nazi books. And I understand that like hero in this book is coerced into joining, and it's in France, and it has a black female love interest who he like helps save, and I understand that, but that is like also the epitome of white supremacy because it has the white savior trope happening, and that's weird. Two, it's really, the premise to me sounds not that different than the premise of some of the romances I have seen that are set during slavery in the States, and you know, it's the master and a black slave having a romance, and that's just not okay at the end of the day. And we need to be better as a community to not uphold white supremacist ideals like this, because it is just not okay. Like, it's super duper not okay to do this. And I think this also ties into another theme I often see in defense of books like this sometimes, and why it's okay to read them, and like, you know, the author did a ton of research or this or that, and that's fine. But I just don't think we need these books in our community. Romance gets shit on all the time by other people, and books like this don't help the argument about why romance is important, in my opinion. If you want to write these books, write them in historical fiction. You do not need to write them in the romance genre. That's my hot take. I was pretty disappointed when this happened, and I realized what the book club pick was, so obviously rightful critique. But this ties into another thing I saw sometimes about this book, and I've seen about other books that have harmful representation in them and harmful character types. So the next one is something that ties directly into the Nazi and white supremacy romances, and like the values being placed into romance, and that is the love fixes all ideology. This is very harmful. We should never ever say love fixes all. Love does not fix all. Love does not make you not a racist, not a sexist, not a whatever isms you want to put on there. It doesn't fix. Plenty of people get married to people who, you know, are still racist, are still, you know, just anything. Like, it doesn't stop anything. This ideology is just very dangerous, like seriously dangerous, because it does not address the systematic issues within our societies that cause these things like racism and anti-Semitism and all those things. It doesn't fix it. It just doesn't. And we should not say that it does, and that you have to read a book to see how love heals all in this book about a Nazi and a black woman getting married and like falling in love. That's just not it. And I'm not saying that didn't happen in history, but some things in history don't need to be put into a fictional book. That's my stance. I'm not for all the sheer volume of World War II historical fiction out there either, to be honest with you. I think it's weird. I think people's deep fascination with certain things of this is weird, and to me, again, it all ties back into white supremacy at the end of the day. We do have to look at history and learn and do better, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to do that through romance books. Yeah, this, oh God, it happens all the time, y'all. I have had so many videos where I've had to talk about another Nazi romance. So just keep that in mind as you pick up books. If that's in a book, that's a romance book being marketed as such, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe, you know, and you're probably, someone's gonna disagree with me in the comments, and that's fine. You can fuck off. Like, I have no patience for anyone who is okay with a Nazi romance at this point in my life. There's too much things going on in this world that tie right back into these ideologies that I will never stand for those romances. I'm gonna stand for everyone who is hurt by people like that, long before I ever touch one of these books. All right, y'all, here's the last one, the one you've probably been waiting for the most. It is someone reinvents the romance genre. This is my favorite item that rolls through constantly. And I'm gonna give some examples before I go into the most recent one. So generally speaking, what it is, it's like a New York Times, some fucking publishing house, some freaking newspaper, right? Is like, hey, I interviewed this author and like they're reinventing the romance genre with blah blah blah. Like, I saw it a lot with Sally Rooney, which she's not romance, I'm pretty sure she's just fiction. And it's fine, she has romantic themes, I think, and it's fiction. And like, you know, I'm gonna do this, or it doesn't need an HCA or an HFN, like it's just gonna be different. And I'm like, what do you actually think of people that truly do write romance books and like proudly do so, when like all you're doing is shitting on them by saying you're gonna come in and reinvent a genre definition? It's not how that works. Calm down. They also will be like, I'm innovating in the genre, which is what happened this month with Verba. If you aren't on TikTok, you probably didn't hear about Verba. I did tweet about it, and we talked about it in my Discord with my members. Verba was wild to watch unfold, to say the least. What is Verba? What happened? I have a loose breakdown, and I will link to a bunch of resources in the comments because honestly, it's almost too much to keep up with. So about 4 days before launching with an email, we were told that a groundbreaking thing was coming, and we had a whole bunch of TikTok authors, a whole bunch of some audiobook narrators, and like Thor Bradley, who chops the wood on TikTok, talking about this, teasing this announcement. And I mean, it was a ton of people like teasing it, and I feel like I was inundated with it. Sign up for an email, you'll get this email and it's gonna tell you all about it a day ahead of the live stream. So I signed up because I was like, I'm gonna want this email. I was like, I'm gonna want this email. So I got the email, and I get this email on July 4th at like 8 p.m. Central Time. And you know, they're teasing it's gonna be big, it's this innovation, it's this whole new thing. Well, the email is so vague that it literally says, say hello to Verba. What is Verba? It's a limitless listening audio book platform for a monthly subscription fee. You can browse the library and start listening immediately. So basically what you're telling me is it's Spotify for books, aka Scribd. You can use your library for this. If you live in the States and you have a decent library system, you can also buy library cards to do this. Also, Any Play exists. Like, there's a lot of platforms that already do this. Then it tells us who, and it's Jennifer Jensen, and Chance Cherry is the CCO, so the Chief Commerce Officer? I don't know, whatever. And they've connected with the authors, and it's set to launch in December 2022. This thing lasted like 48 hours, y'all. So Thor Bradley, Kai Willow Winters, Jennifer Jensen, Caitlin Shepard, and Chance J. Terry were some of the main people involved in this. So there were TikToks and tweets and people just being like, you know, this was overhyped, like what the fuck, this is all this is. My favorite part, the people involved started responding and were not nice. They were very condescending to people, and they're like, you just need to wait and see, you don't understand. And I'm already thinking, oh my, like my marketing brain's going, right? I'm like, this is 100% like not a fully thought out plan. Like, they haven't even done funding yet or anything. Like, this is probably just in very initial stages. So we're probably jumping the gun on announcing it. The live happened and they came out with details on the live. So the live, I'm gonna give a very short summary of this. The live was not very watchable. I didn't watch it. I watched recaps of it because I honestly did not want to deal with the chat on TikTok. It is annoying to deal with. The live was basically a weird business meeting is my understanding. They discussed the platform. Supposedly it was going to be $20 a month, which is steep in this economy. And it was going to involve them contracting with indie authors to get audiobooks published. They would have a catalog of audiobook narrators they use that they pay a salary to. They would, you know, you couldn't pick your audiobook narrator potentially. Maybe you could, we are unsure. Pay a flat fee to the author to get rights to their book, and they would have those rights for 2 years to have it in Verba. And then after that 2 years, the author would get their book files back and they could go wide with it if they wanted. This is not dissimilar to how some services do this already. So like Scribd does this with a lot of indie romances. Like they have a whole thing where they like contact indie authors and like get them to, you know, sell the rights, and they get their book produced as an audiobook. I believe Tantor Audio does the same. Like this exists. Like there are services doing this already. So again, we leave with a lot more questions than answers from this live, and people are mad, not mad, they're just like, they're concerned, and there was valid criticism. I did not see a single person being mean to these people. They were just saying this plan feels half-cocked. This doesn't feel well thought out. I'm confused. And like, again, perhaps you don't launch with a vague email and then do a TikTok live about it. Like maybe you get your shit together a little faster before you start hyping people up for something that you don't have your shit together on. Like they literally, I don't think hadn't done their first round of funding for this launch. I don't know, were they expecting readers to fund this? And I was just concerned, my main concern, how is this going to damage indie authors? Because that's who I'm worried about getting taken advantage of, right? So people also find out Willow Winters is involved, which I saw like a vague TikTok, wasn't sure how involved she was or wasn't. Like I don't really get her on my FYP, so I don't like seek her out. I don't enjoy, like after the Dana Isley and Bo Arrow stuff, I try to avoid her. So it turns out Willow Winters is involved and people are pissed. Rightfully so. The woman did wish that someone got hit by a bus and then gave a big apology, vanished for 2 weeks and came back. Like that's not okay. Like we need more accountability on her part. And it was interesting though, because when I did finally see one of the Willow ones, she's spitting out these stats that I continue to see used around romance, and I need to go re-verify them. But I actually don't know that we have updated stats on romance sales. We claim that romance carries the rest of publishing, but we're not actually positive if it does or not. And I think the study is from like the 2015-ish, but I will verify that and I'll put it down below if I can find it. So she's like spitting stats on romance things that we don't actually have like hard evidence for. You know, people are pissed, she's involved. Verba starts responding not great, and some of the people who are involved that aren't experienced audiobook narrators are like kind of acting like audiobooks aren't hard to do. So that's interesting. Then finally, there's a whole thing where Thor Bradley asks her to apologize to him because she like kind of devalued him in a weird way. He mistook it. She wasn't actually doing that. She was saying like, you know, we shouldn't be just like, her and a lot of other people were saying basically like, just because it's a hot guy doesn't mean we should just turn off our brains and not think critically about this project. As a note though, they have since like had a private conversation and smooth things over. He left the project before it even dissolved. Once he found out about Willow Winters, he was out. Like I am very like surprised, to be honest with you, at how he handled this, because he basically, once he found out about the Willow Winters stuff, he was like, I'm out, I'm not doing this. So he left the project. He apologized to people that he was like less than nice to in the comments. And then that night, I think Chance got on TikTok and like is in the mirror talking about how Verba is no more, it has dissolved. Basically to not take any accountability. It feels like somebody got death threats that was involved, and death threats towards their children, which is not okay. Like death threats are never okay, but it's also really hard that every time we try to have hard conversations in communities now, it just like devolves to death threats and we never get to the next step of the conversation. It just stops. Rightfully so. Again, nobody should be getting death threats, but I do feel like there's more to this conversation that needs to happen. So yeah, it was about 24 hours after their live Monday night on Wednesday, or Tuesday night on Wednesday, they dissolved Verba. It is no more. And then later, Chance came back and did name the former CEO that stepped down, it seems like. So Jensen and Shepherd Publishing were the two other people like working on the project, I guess, because Chance was outvoted to remove Willow from the project, which is interesting because, you know, go figure, they're gonna side with her. But yeah, they did attempt to, before that, vote Willow out of the project, like remove her, and I'm assuming she was funding some of this, and that's why they didn't want to remove her. Because again, I do not think they had actually gone through venture capitalist funding programs yet. Like usually when you launch something like this, right, you would go through funding, round 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I've never done it, so I don't know, but like that's my understanding of how that sort of stuff works. So they'd never gotten to that step. He tried to vote Willow off, that didn't happen, and then they just stopped it before it even started. In my Discord with my members, we were chatting about it, and I said, I don't know, I give it like 6 months once it launches. It barely lasted 48 hours. It was absolutely wild. I truly, I hope that was a decent summary, because it's so much. It's very hard to break this down. But if you have questions about Verba, let me know. Maybe I can do a live and we can talk about it some more even. I don't care. I'm open to chatting about it more. But that's kind of the basic summary. I will link to a great Reddit thread where people are just going on about it, and there's great breakdowns of the different lives and timelines in there. So I highly recommend that as a resource. I'll also link to Marina's video, which is also a great resource. She did a great breakdown of it pre like more of the explosion of it. So I recommend you check those out. Yeah, that's it for this month's Romancelandia Monthly. So thank you for joining me to talk romance trends and some of the things that have happened in the last month or so. If there's anything you think I missed, feel free to drop it in the comments down below. And if you don't want to do that, tell me what trend you notice all the time in Romancelandia as well, because I'm just always curious to see if I'm the only one who notices these. And last, of course, if you don't want to do that, you can leave me a sleepy emoji because I am wiped. I'm about to go down my water. I'm so thirsty. So I'm wiped. I'm gonna down my water and get ready to edit this video because this is gonna be a long one. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me and watching. I will have links to be my friend anywhere on the internet in that description box. And I will talk to y'all in a few days. Bye.
Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions.